Welcome to another edition of On the Inside Track. Have you ever wondered how a person became who they are today? How did they come to certain beliefs? How did they choose a particular path? Who or what influenced the person they are now? Join me, Debbie Hazelton, on the Inside Track as one-on-one my guests and I explore defining moments from there to here on the Inside Track. Hello and welcome to another edition of On the Inside Track. I'm Debbie Hazelton, and oh my goodness, it's been a while since I have been here, and this show will be heard on ACB Radio Mainstream at 9 o'clock each Wednesday of this month, 9 o'clock Eastern, and it will be on my YouTube channel. This month's guest is someone who's been here on some of my other shows in the past, and many of you know him from other things he's done in the community or his books. I'm talking about Marty Klein. So I'm going to let Marty tell you about what he's up to. Pretty exciting stuff. He will be busy at the ACB National Convention this summer with the Friends in Art Showcase, and he is just busy out there in the world doing his Why Can't We Serve project. And if you don't know what that is, you might want to check it out, as it's really pretty exciting and freeing for everyone. So thank you so much for being here. Let's get on with hearing from Marty.
Well, I am thrilled. Some of you may remember here on the Inside Track, some of you may remember from some other shows in the past that I had the honor of having Marty Klein here a couple of times talking about, one time it was about the blind yoga material that you did, Marty, and the other time it was about your book on gambling.
Right.
What was the name of that wonderful book?
The Enlightened Gambler.
The Enlightened Gambler. I love that book on Kindle.
Yeah.
It's just such a spirited book. Some of you may know Marty from just being around our community, and I'm just honored to have Marty here today. We're talking about Marty's documentary. Do we call it a movie? Documentary?
It's a documentary film, and it's a movie, yes.
Okay. Called Why Can't We Serve? That is the name, right? Why Can't We Serve?
You got it right.
Okay, great. Well, you know, it's interesting because I was not very receptive at the start of this. I was happy for you, Marty, to take this on, but I guess I just felt like, I don't want anything to do with, more about the military or more about defending and war and all that kind of thing. Because I think of you, Marty, as such a human potential person and positive, new age, spiritual, kind of personal growth person. And here you were into all this that I said, I don't know. I don't think I want to do that. But I understood that it was very important to you. Understatement. So go ahead and respond to that in any way that you want, and then bring us forward as to what this is all about. And I know for all of you who are going to convention, Marty is doing a presentation about this and showing this film at the Friends in Art luncheon at ACB National Convention this summer in Rochester. So take it away, Marty.
Well, what happens a lot of the time when I'm hanging out with Democrats, liberals, progressives, the initial reaction to Why Can't We Serve, military, veterans, suicides, all that, the initial reaction was like yours. And it's my job basically to let people know that this movie is a collaboration of my efforts to try to reduce the number of veteran suicides taking place in our country every day. But at the same time, the movie is so focused on disability liberation and trying to change the culture in our country around how people see others with disabilities. That's the real key.
I love that. Yeah. What do people most often want to do when we walk into a room and they see us? They want to make us sit down. They want to put us somewhere. Yeah. Tell me what, though, I mean, I never even made the association until you said that and you sung a song at our center when you visited a couple of months ago.
Right.
What does suicide have to do with Why Can't We Serve?
Well, the movie, it starts out basically by saying 22 veterans take their lives every day in our country, give or take one or two. And it's an ongoing tragedy that nobody is doing much about. And it was my decision when I decided to make the movie. I tried to make a movie that would expose this as a real ongoing tragedy that we, as Americans, needed to look at and deal with responsibly. And I have some ideas in the movie of ways that we can help reduce the veteran suicide rate in our country. But basically, to back up a little bit, the movie explains that people who are in combat, who get wounded and disabled, or if they're on the job and not in combat, but they get wounded and disabled, most of them get a disability check and they get ushered right out of the military. When they get out of the military, they now have a disability they never had before, and they've lost a connection to serving the country, having a purpose in life, and being part of a team that they really cherished. They're very overwhelmed with that. So it's not healthy. And what I'm trying to do with the movie is to point out that there are highly functioning soldiers who were wounded and disabled, but they're still clear and functioning well. They're not allowed to stay in the military, but with my idea, my policy change, I'd like to see the military have a policy change where they would allow highly functioning disabled soldiers to remain in the military, have a chance of a career of dignity instead of being forced out. So I think that if that happens, a lot of these people won't feel despair. They won't feel disconnected. They'll have to deal with their disability. But all the statistics show that if you have a disability and you have to go to rehab, your rehab goes much, much better when you are eager to get back onto a job that you care about. But a lot of these guys, when they have disability rehab, they have nothing to look forward to. So their identity is really challenged because now they have a disability and they're no longer part of the team.
I would imagine some feel that they failed.
They feel that they failed. They feel that they're no longer useful because the military doesn't want them anymore. And it really flies right in the face of all the stuff that people with disabilities walk around with every day. Now, fast forward, if my movie is successful and we can actually get the military to change this policy, somewhere down the road, in bus stations and train stations and airports, you will see soldiers in uniform, in wheelchairs, or walking with a seeing eye dog or a cane, or having a limb missing from an accident or the combat stuff, but you'll still see them in uniform serving their country. They will walk around their lives much more proudly. And when everybody who's able-bodied sees what these disabled soldiers are doing, I believe that all people with disabilities will be seen in a different way.
Very interesting, because I guess I would have thought, well, okay, people might feel suicidal, and a lot of it might be the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder, which, I mean, I would even think that post-traumatic stress disorder would be a part of being told you're out and, you know, you're not welcome back. Well,
Sure.
We see it even in our culture without disability when people leave workplaces, when they were let go. A lot of times, nobody has anything to do with them after they leave. They don't feel like they can just call up anybody there and say, hey, can we go to lunch? Because they feel weird that they were made to leave, and the people who are there feel like, oh, I shouldn't say anything to them because they're not here with us anymore. You know,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the same kind of thing that's happening with the military.
Yes, and
It's cliquey tribe, and they're out.
one of the guys in the military, in the movie, said that people ask him if he misses the Army, and he says, "No, I don't miss the Army. I miss soldiers." You know, he misses the friendships, the camaraderie.
Yes.
And we happen to have one of the people. I got a bunch of interviews for the movie of a lot of veterans, and one guy happened to been in for 18 years in special forces, and his unit was attacked in Iraq, and he was injured, and he had a number of surgeries to recover, and in the process he lost his vision completely. Well, he was able to remain in because he asked his chain of command if he could remain in at any capacity, and they said okay. He remained in the military for 10 years, totally blind, doing a completely responsible job because he was working on a computer with software that we all know helps us become completely functioning.
Right.
And he stayed in for 10 years. So obviously, in the movie, you'll see that, just because you're disabled doesn't mean you're not capable. Obviously, that's the big thing I'm trying to contradict here.
Well, and that is important. And a lot of times there's sort of an assumption, like I said, that we should sit down or that we need to be less physical, when I think you and I have talked about this. We really need to be even more physical.
Yes.
And we need to be more involved in every way that we can be to keep ourselves active and alive and on purpose and happy.
Yeah. And in my house, just for everybody to know, I do yoga every day. I play drums, and I have a treadmill just in case I don't have any friends around to go for a nice long walk. I have a lot of ways to get exercise. And in the summertime, I have a pond on my land and I swim. So I don't know how I would survive if my body didn't get a chance to just open up the throttle, and sweat and use the muscles and the bones and our joints, because we are, so much of our bodies is who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lady who does a lot of guided imagery, Belle Ruth Neppersteck, and she often refers to the body as our oldest friend.
So now I can give you a little bit of background, like it's been about 4 years now. I had this decision, this idea to make a movie, and I raised about $13,000 doing a fundraising campaign, and it was just enough to get me going. Ultimately, I ended up raising a little bit more than $30,000 to complete the movie. The movie, it's 52 minutes, and it's getting a lot of really good recognition, and I'm excited about that. I worked with a cinematographer who was a photographer who never made a movie before, and he didn't know anything about disability and the military stuff, and I didn't know anything about the visual world, and we worked beautifully together. He learned from me, I learned from him, and together we put a really good movie together. I had other people working with me, getting interviews and, checking every scene to make sure visually it was going to be okay. But the whole movie from beginning to middle to end was me, my ideas, me taking different pieces of every interview that we did, seeing which ones would be ideal to put in the movie, and then finding places that they would be it would all flow beautifully together. And it was a lot of work, but it was a great example of how, even though I have no sight, I was completely capable of making this movie. I needed assistance from a sighted person or two, but I created the idea. I got the interviews. I went over every interview and figured out which pieces, they call them selects. If it's like 4 minutes and 26 seconds to 5 minutes and 30 seconds, that 1 minute and 4 seconds I wanted in the movie, I would select that piece.
Oh my gosh.
So it was work, but it was so it was expanding. I learned a lot, but I also learned that even though I don't have sight, I'm completely capable of making a movie. And fast forward on Monday, I was the keynote speaker at the Memorial Day service in Kingston, New York, and then I was honored by being the Grand Marshal of the parade. And it was a wonderful experience. There were a number of journalists there, and one of them said, I don't know if there are any other blind directors and producers in the country. So I told him I wasn't sure either. So turned out after the event, he went on his own to Google it, and turns out that at this moment, I am the only director and producer of movies who happens to be blind in our country.
Wow. Very cool.
That's very cool.
That's very cool.
And one of the things that I want to talk about at the luncheon at the American Council of the Blind Convention in Rochester is that we only have limits when we think we're limited. Mm-hmm. And I want to let everybody know who comes to the luncheon that you want to make a movie, you can make a movie. I'm proof of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very powerful.
Well, it is, because most of what a lot of people are doing now is with computers and software. And I know that isn't really your bag, but did you have other equipment, or how did you find your other people to help you with all that?
Well, first of all, the song that you heard me play at the church is called the Veterans Anthem, which I wrote for the movie. And it's really cool because I got to go into a studio and work with professional musicians. I wrote the song, I'm the lead singer in the song, and I have great musicians backing me up. And the last 4 minutes of the movie, the song is playing to what's on the screen is disabled athletes doing incredibly amazing extreme sports. So it's very uplifting. But one of the things that was so much fun was to go into the sound studio and actually record the song. So
fabulous.
I had so much fun with it. And it was another learning experience, expanding, like, oh my God, I can make a song.
I love it. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Well, I know you had many other successes prior, many other talents and opportunities, and, just creating them. And so, in a way, this really doesn't surprise me, because you've done a lot with your life. Had you ever been in the military, or what is it that got you?
Well, yeah, I was in the Air Force from 1967 through 1970. And that's where I came down with an eye disease, which ended up causing me to lose my sight.
Okay.
And when I got out of the military in May 1970, it took me a good 7 years to try to reclaim my life now as a person with no sight. And, I went through hell. I call it like my 7 years of hell. But I'm alive and well and functioning really well. And today, and one of the things I tell people now is that my life without sight is much better than it ever was when I had sight.
Oh, yeah.
But I had to go through those years of struggle because I couldn't allow myself to, in a relaxed way, everything I'm talking about, like everybody carries this stigma that if you're disabled, you're going to be a burden, you're going to be useless, you're going to be less than. Mm-hmm. So I was carrying that for those years, and I was fortunate to, hook up with some communities of people that were very supportive and, got my life in pretty good shape. And since then, I have written 3 books. Mm-hmm. I have written 2 screenplays. I founded and started a holistic learning center in Tallahassee that I was CEO of for 7 years. Obviously, most people know me from my introduction to yoga by beginning yoga for the blind and visually impaired, the Blind Yoga website. So, I've been very active, and I've accomplished a lot of things, and I've done it all without sight.
Yep. And that message needs to keep being out there, because sometimes it isn't only the other people that need those messages. sometimes it's we who need the inspiration in those messages, because it's easy to sort of argue for our own limitations if we're not careful, and just kind of not want to expand the comfort zone.
That's right. Yeah. Now I'm going to jump a little bit, but
Okay.
Last June, I went to Washington, D.C., and I showed the movie to about 20 people who were involved with the Christopher Reed Foundation, Paralyzed Veterans of America, Blind Veterans of America, a bunch of different groups. And I don't know if it was a direct influence by me showing the movie then, but 9 months later, on March 5th, the president signed an initiative to form a task force specifically to find creative ways to reduce the veteran suicide rate in our country.
Oh, fabulous.
So I'm showing the movie. I've showed it in Florida a number of times. I've showed it in New York a number of times. I'm willing to show it anywhere, basically. But I want to be invited to Washington, D.C., so I can show the movie to the people involved with the task force, and I can discuss my ideas of ways that we can reduce suicides of veterans. I think that's the next step. And there are so many veterans that are supportive to what I'm trying to do, because they know it's a real tragedy, but they didn't know what to do. And they see my project has a logic to it. And it makes sense that if some of these combat wounded soldiers could remain in the military and have a decent, regular job and have a chance of a career, it would change their lives. It would lower suicides in the military. And it's very exciting to me, because in the movie I have other ideas. I'm not going to say everything right now on the podcast, but years ago, people used to call me a visionary, and I kind of laughed at it. I don't know, it's nice being seen as somebody who's blind, who's actually has some, ideas of what he wants to do in the world. But I feel like my ideas could make a difference.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Wow.
But, when I made the movie, Debbie, I did it because of me, because I had the need to make this movie. And in the process, I reclaimed a love of my father. I could never get past his abusing me as a child. All the years I was in counseling, I had to deal with all the abuse. And I loved him, but I always hated him for what he did, until I started making this movie. And somewhere in the process, I realized that because he was in World War I and almost died, and had to be in an Italian hospital for 4 months to recover, he carried PTSD. They didn't call it that in those days. But whenever there was a little bit extra noise in the house, he would flip out and start beating me up. And he didn't mean it, and I didn't know what was going on. And now, since I made the movie, I have more compassion for what he had to deal with.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that was very big.
Yeah, that's huge. Wow. And you didn't even see that coming, that you were going to find that, did you, until you got into this? Wow.
I did not see it coming. But since I've made the movie and I've had this connection, I just think that all the people who see the movie realize the depth of PTSD that so many people, you don't have to be in the military.
No.
You could be, all the horrible things that happen to women, incest and rape and abuse. Those they have PTSD from those things.
Absolutely. There's a lot of it that,
car crashes, anything like that. And it's really sad. One of the things about the military is, like, they're told they're supposed to be invulnerable and strong. So they go to combat, they get wounded, they see all these horrible things. And then when they start ready to get out, they're carrying this, but they don't have the quality of knowing that they need to ask for help, because that makes them feel less than, because they were told they're supposed to be strong.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get all of these things to change with the movie.
Well, it makes a lot of good sense, and it sounds like you really are doing it in a wonderful way. And so I'm wondering, what about, I don't know if Marilyn Volker came through at all, but I know she's been involved in working with military, and if she didn't, I can certainly say something, but I think you can contact her again. But also, what about people like Oprah, Dr. Phil, and what about a TED Talk?
I'm open to all those things. And I think what I'm noticing is that there's an organic evolution of this happening. Mm-hmm. Like a year and a half ago, the movie was basically done, but I wasn't in the place where I could stand in front of a lot of people and mm-hmm. speak with grace and elegance. Mm-hmm. I feel like I can do that now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm trusting that if I'm to be on, Dr. Phil or Oprah or, do a TED Talk, I feel more capable now. And my public relations person we sent a couple of letters to, the movie is really good, but I've been told that if you want to get it on Netflix or HBO or really be seen nationally, you need to have some celebrity endorsing it. So we've written now to 2 celebrities, one a veteran who's an actor, and Adam Driver. Are you familiar with Adam Driver?
No, I'm not.
Well, he was in Black Klansman, and he's right now pretty hot. He's like 37, and he's a good-looking guy, and he was a veteran. So we're hoping that he'd be interested. And we also sent a letter to Michelle Obama. I read her book, Becoming, and I learned that she did a lot of work for veterans when she was First Lady. So she may be interested, too. So I'm hoping
I think you're the second person that told me I need to read this book. So I do need to read this book.
Yeah, it's a good book, and I learned a lot from her, and I gained immense respect for her for how she balanced her relationship with Obama, her mothering of her 2 daughters, and her position as First Lady. When it was the last thing that she was interested in.
Yeah.
But she did great, and I still think that she and Barack were wonderful models, and I don't want to go into politics right now.
Right.
I do think that the movie needs some help from some celebrity, some national groups that can support my efforts, and to help get this forward. And we're still looking for donations, but every dollar that comes in goes to distribution, recognition, and marketing of the movie.
I could really see Dr. Oz, Oprah, Dr. Phil, and I would also think as a TED Talk. I don't know a lot about how TED works, but it's fascinating, and there's so much out there, and I can only imagine that you'd get a huge amount of support.
Wherever I go to speak about this, people stand up and applaud me. And it's not that they're applauding me, but they're applauding somebody who's created a way to bring this issue to the forefront and to try to really help make a difference.
Are you still getting resistance? Are there people that say, oh, no, they can't and they shouldn't, and what are you talking about?
I got some resistance a couple of years ago, but I'm not getting much resistance these days. And, I would guess the resistance would be from old generals who always want to have the image of the military looking invulnerable. But in the movie, we interviewed a deaf man named Keith Nolan, and he always wanted to join the military but couldn't because he was deaf. And he just believed that, if you're deaf, you can't join the military. But he went to Israel, and he found out that there were some deaf and hard of hearing people in the military in Israel. And it changed his way of thinking about it. He realized that, he may be deaf, but he has a lot to offer, as the Israeli soldiers let him know. So there's all kinds of possibilities there.
Yeah, it really kind of challenges a lot of assumptions around people with disabilities and what that means. It really, it isn't only a thought about the military and assumptions about the military, but it really does challenge attitudes around disability, don't you think?
Totally, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do, because the movie initially looks like it's a real effort to try to reduce the veteran suicides in the country, and that it is. But the long-range effect of the movie is to try to change the culture in the United States about how people with disabilities are seen. And there's one spot in the movie where it says, where we say that it's not just up to everybody else, but it's also up to the veterans and the people with disabilities to know that they're not less than.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people who have disabilities, they may do their best to look strong in the world, but they may still feel less than because of their disability.
Sure. And I mean, really, it can take a long time. I've been the way I am my whole life, but it's only as I've gotten a lot older that I have found a real, genuine, complete sense of self-acceptance that doesn't have that sort of, I wish I could get rid of it. I wish I could get rid of it.
Exactly.
I mean, there are times that I'd like to get rid of it just because I want to be out there driving and certain things like that. But I don't hate the way I am anymore. And I think that one of the things that happens is that it's, on lots of levels, I think that people with disabilities internalize the assumptions, the stereotypes that are believed about disability, and versus the opposite of what the military is supposed to be, of everybody being strong, etc. So as long as that's being internalized and being believed, then it replays over and over like loopy tapes, and and there's the PTSD and all of that. So getting to the point where we say, oh, wait, okay, no, that's not acceptable. I'm not going to settle for that anymore. And that's not who I am. And, that's just really old thinking.
And in the movie, one of the things I say, the narrator says, like, what we perceive is what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you perceive yourself as less than because of your disability, then you're going to believe it. And there's another thing that I said, I just lost the thought. It'll come back to me. Bottom line is that you and I know, I know what I was going to say. Like a lot of people who have disabilities tolerate it, which is a lot better than not tolerating it.
Mm-hmm.
But tolerating it and totally accepting yourself with a disability are two different things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I could tolerate, a house guest that spills things and makes noise in weird ways that I don't like. And, I could tolerate it. And this too shall pass. But if I really accept and I just learn to love and embrace and find the joy in all of that. Well, that's totally different. Somewhere, and I was giving a talk recently, and there was a person who used that word, that we should tolerate others. And I said, no, people with disabilities don't want to just be tolerated. We want to be really accepted.
That's right. And the person who said that is still dealing with their own disability issues, their own.
Sure.
So, to jump to the ACB, on the 7th, it's a Sunday evening, I'm doing a 90-minute introduction to yoga.
Oh, good.
Which is going to be really fun. I have, we'll be doing some 20-minute of meditation, doing like a bunch of little postures in the chairs, and then I'll be opening it up for all questions about yoga. And I'll be bringing some of my yoga packages to sell and a few of them to give away also. And then the next day, we'll do that lunch. And right after the lunch, we're going to be showing the audio version of the movie, Why Can't We Serve? And then after that, we'll have a quick Q&A.
Now, you don't mean audio only. You mean audio described. Yeah.
Audio described movie.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And then in the evening, I'm going to get to do my song, a Veterans Anthem, for the Creativity Night.
Oh, in the showcase.
Yeah.
In the Friends and Art Showcase. Wonderful. Yeah. Wow.
So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to it so much because I've learned so much over the years, and I'm in a position where I'm delighted to pass on and inspire people if I
Well, you will. You will. I know people right away at our center said, wow, Marty is cool. Marty is cool. And they just got that from you, instantly. And so, yeah, I mean, and I know others may not know that you also chant. And
Yep.
Jeff at church, or Jeff G, says that you introduced him to chanting. You were
Yes.
doing it before. And did you introduce Adam to it as well, or how did that happen?
I did. I actually, Adam and I first met because I was teaching rhythm classes in drum and rhythm classes in Tallahassee, and then he was working at the Division of Blind Service, so he could help me with computer, and I can help him with drumming and stuff. And he's gone on to be, a wonderful bass player and drummer, and a dear friend of mine. So, and Jeff too. Jeff's great. Yeah. So,
well, so are you going to do any chanting as part of your yoga thing?
I might do one, because I'm not going to be bringing a harmonium or a guitar, so I might just do one, something simple. But I don't have any chanting CDs. I don't think I have any chanting thing on YouTube, but I love it. I mean, you heard me. You were there for
I did, and I wish we had. I don't know if we recorded it. I don't know, but I would love to go back and hear a lot of that again. And there was one.
It is recorded.
It is? Okay. Because there was one in English that I was like, oh, wow, that is so sweet. Talk about healing childhood with that one. Very, very sweet. And so, yeah, I would think that.
That's the one I'm going to do.
Oh, good.
In Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one. I just played the drum and I just sang that.
Yeah.
And everybody sang. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, I think it will be a huge success, and I'm really glad for Friends in Art to get the opportunity to have you there, because that will help more people know about Friends in Art. And and is this your first ACB convention?
I went to one about, 20, 25 years ago in Chicago, ACB in Chicago, and I enjoyed it a lot. I had a couple of friends, Dan and Dave Simpson, who were involved with Friends in Art, and they encouraged me to come, and I knew them from another group of people. Mm-hmm. I believe Dan may still be involved. I'm not sure. But I enjoyed being there, but I never felt like I wanted to be part of the membership, either NFB or ACB. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of like, I call myself like a free radical. I am definitely.
Free radicals don't have a very good reputation, though,
this one does. Right. Yes.
Well, good for you. I mean, I think there's a whole lot to be said for really both organizations, and that in spite of each other, there are some further attempts at doing things together, and there are just a lot of good people in both. Yeah. And inside or outside, they're just it's just great. It's great you'll be there. I think the atmosphere of a convention is just incredible. I'm
looking forward to it. Yeah.
I've always been so impressed with how it comes together, and there's so much accessibility. It just always blows my mind. I just love it.
Debbie, you said something just before, and I want to validate what you said. The ACB and the NFB organizations have made a difference. And I know that if NFB a few years ago did not sue Apple, we would not be talking right now on Apple phones, because Apple decided to embrace blind and visually impaired by having the voice mechanism in the iPhones from that point as default. And how much that's made a difference in so many of our lives. So, I don't know if it would have happened if NFB didn't sue them.
I completely forgot that they did do that. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Good for them. And they do a lot, and ACB does a lot, and I'm looking forward to being there in July and doing whatever I can do to inspire and support their efforts.
Oh, I think you'll be very busy. And are you gonna stay there, or do you live that close?
Well, no, Charlotte's coming with me, my partner, and we're going to take a train to Rochester. We'll be there for 2 nights, and then we leave that Tuesday afternoon. We got other things going on, but we'll only be there a couple of days. But I'm looking forward to it a lot. It should be fun.
Well, yeah, you'll have a great time. And I don't remember. Are you reading Braille these days?
No, I'm. I just use my voice. And
okay.
Stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I don't remember. Do you have any residual vision at all?
No, 0.
No. Okay. Well, I'm just always even impressed with, getting the program and getting a lot of exhibitors will have things in accessible formats and hands-on and, all kinds of, and the daily paper and all kinds of things. So, and I'm sure, there'll be plenty of ways to take in all kinds of things that are going on. So, but I think you'll be very busy. There'll be a lot of people that'll be really happy to meet you. And, gosh,
I can mention a couple other things, If people are interested in learning more about the Why Can't We Serve project, they can go to whycan'tweserve.com. And a lot of it is accessible. And also, if they're interested, I don't know how accessible Facebook is to visually impaired. It's hard for me, but I do have a Why Can't We Serve Facebook page, which has a lot of the audio and visual clips of all the things that I've done and the places I've spoken. And it's really very dynamic. How do you work? Do you work Facebook much?
Yeah, I mostly use the iPhone app. I sometimes on the computer will go to m.facebook.com because it's a lighter, it's considered a mobile version, and so it has a lot of the blah blah stripped out of it. But I will use the app on the iPhone a lot, and I'll either go into notifications and see what is there, and I'll go to news feed and just kind of browse through some of that.
Right.
And but mostly on the iPhone.
I know for me years ago, I really enjoyed Social Eyes. Do you remember that? That was a software that made Facebook accessible, and I really felt like, well, I was missing out on all the pictures and everything, of course, and the graphics, but I was able to function, in a relatively decent way on Facebook. But then Facebook made some changes, and it made it impossible for Social Eyes to continue, and they faded and disappeared. So
I don't remember Social Eyes, but there's a lot about Facebook that's frustrating. I mean, even for people who don't have any, for temporarily able-bodied folks, there are a lot of things that are frustrating on Facebook. I mean, even what shows up in the news feed, it's not in order in the way that people might want it to be. And I mean, I hear other people who don't have any disability also complain about Facebook,
Right.
So, but I use it. I actually left and then came back, and I've stayed and was mostly active in Twitter, and now I'm not as active in Twitter. I do like it, but it's just, I don't know. It just isn't, there's not as much happening there.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like I feel like I need to be on Facebook because of my project. And by the way, it's now called the Movie Turned Movement, which is really cool. But, I work with somebody every Tuesday morning for about a half hour or an hour to, I send her a couple of the things that I want to, blogs that I want her to post for me. And, she'll do the insights so I know how many people are actually checking things out. So I'm aware of how it functions, but I just pay this person and I'm happy to do it. At least that way I can stay connected to it.
Now, to find your page for anybody that wants to, it's called the Movie Turned Movement?
No, that's just that's what it's called. But Why Can't We Serve? You can go to Facebook and then search for Why Can't We Serve?
Okay.
And the Why Can't We Serve Facebook page should come up.
Well,
and if you want to check the website, you can go to whycan'tweserve.com.
I would think it would be very helpful if any of us go to Why Can't We Serve on Facebook and like it and share it.
Great. That would be so helpful.
And share it. Yeah,
In fact,
I will.
My public relations person is like so frustrated because she thinks that I should have at least 1,000 people who would get my blogs whenever I put them out. But right now the number is only about 300 or 400. So.
Well, you know what? I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel as well. I wish I had thought to do it in video. I didn't, but I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel because I think that even some of my YouTube followers might decide to, get interested.
That'd be great. Any help from anybody? I can't obviously do this alone.
No.
And I'm very, very happy when anybody wants to help. What I don't like is when they tell me what they think I should do next.
And then they don't.
Because I've worked my ass off to get to this place. Now I need people to take some responsibility to help get us to the next level and the next level. Yeah. Any creative ideas would be great, but please, don't tell me to do it. Help me do it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I think that makes sense. And well what you want to do next and what you think you should do next. I just know I could see certain people going, wow, yeah, this is great, and so anyway, I'm just really happy that it's doing as well as it is. And I think the message is very important. And I'm really glad that I finally listened and that we, reconnected on it because I know I wasn't one of the people that was instrumental in helping you get the funding and get it going and all that. But wow, am I ever glad. I'm just thrilled to be on the bandwagon now.
I really thank you.
Cheer you on.
And I got to say that my spiritual belief is that everything in its time.
Exactly.
So maybe it wasn't the right time for you then, and now it is, and that's wonderful. And thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I'm just super proud, and so this is great. Is there anything else we need to include in this particular show before we?
Well, just if anybody has any connections with anybody in Washington, D.C., to help me get this movie to be seen there, I think that's the way. If the task force sees it and they invite me to come and speak and they embrace what I have to offer, then I think then we have a real chance of getting the military to change the policy. Mm-hmm. And if the military changes the policy, then all kinds of good things will happen.
Wonderful. And for anyone who wants your blind yoga, what's that website?
Well, you can go to blindyoga.net.
Okay.
And, on that is we sell the 5 CD package and we sell the MP3 download of it. And, I've been selling that for about 7 years. And
yeah, you have.
Just this morning, I sent another order out to somebody in the United Kingdom. It's amazing all around the world. It really is the World Wide Web. So many people around the world are doing yoga based on the thing that I created. And I feel very, very proud of that.
That's wonderful. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And to email you will be through your website?
Yeah, you could do that. You could, I can give you my email address.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's Marty, Marty 48 at H as in hotel, V as in Victor, C as in Charlie, .rr.com.
Okay. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for allowing me to do this podcast with you and letting people know that I'm going to be in Rochester and just being supportive to what I'm trying to do. I really appreciate it, Debbie. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you being here. I'm just thrilled.